Good morning. PSD2 eIDAS certificates. Probably you know PSD2 and you know it far better than me. So you know the banks have to open up an interface for TPPs, for third-party providers, so fintechs or insurtechs or whatever. On the other side, insurtechs have to slip under a light license of the National Competent Authority, what in Germany means BaFin. So there was a big struggle, and the major point is they don't know each other before the transaction takes place. And what I try to concentrate today is the means of identification, the certificate that is used to identify the TPP against the bank so that the bank can trust the TPP that he is the one he pretends to be. Next. Okay, my name is Seegebarth. I'm working in the marketing department for around 20 years for trust service providers. Trust service providers are the business units that issue certificates, that issue IT passports. So you use that passport in the internet. I'm also a member of ETSI, that is a European standardization organization that has done much of the work for a trust service provider. And I'm working in the Bundesdruckerei that is located here in Berlin. And actually the Bundesdruckerei is specialized on security ID or secure ID, security features. We print money, we develop color, so the money is the original money. We do it in passports, we do it in Personalausweis, German ID cards, driver's license, and so on. Whenever you have a very secure document, we can provide this. You see some, on the right-hand side, you see some volume data. So we also have a subsidiary that is the DTrust that issues digital identities. And so we start. Yesterday we heard from the Secretary of State that harmonizing European markets is not very successful except market of goods. So we can actually trade very good. But in services it's pretty bad, and you know SEPA, and the same applies for the eIDAS regulation. It was the identity means within Europe that were not harmonized. They are now harmonized. And I would like to focus on one thing, the ID. Every country has its own ID. Some have notified IDs. So the German Personalausweis is notified, the Italian SPIT is notified, the DNI of Spain is notified. You as a bank or TPP can use that identification means for enrollment processes. They are accepted across Europe. That is one point of the eIDAS regulation. The other point is that trust service providers are harmonized and the eIDAS means, so the different means of identification are harmonized and accepted across Europe. And what do I mean by that? This is kind of trust space where you have 7 different means. Every workflow you have in your digital imagination will be secured by these 7 products that can be issued by a trust service provider. And they are anchored in a European trust list. So you always can check from every point in Europe whether these products are real qualified products. And that is the major thing. Every arbitrary workflow you can secure with that. And with PSD2, only the seal and the web authentication certificates are used. But you can do much, much more. And where do you know the scheme as well? You know it from your car. Usually you have a car that has a registration, product registration with the, in Germany, KBA, Kraftfahrtbundesamt, and you have a certification after 2 years. You have to go to some certifying body to say this car is still working. And that is the same process with all these eIDAS products. You have a product registration and you have your re-evaluation every 2 years. That is the strong point, the secure point for these business models. So Now let's get into the PSD2. PSD2 is just an abbreviation, and for me it's an API minus screen scraping, which is an hazard, or which is a challenge for the GDPR, because you know not really what kind of data is flowing. So you have now a controlled interface and strong customer authentication. What you need is a certificate, and that is the RTS that says you have to use these kinds of products. You have either a website authentication certificate or an electronic seal, and it also contains the roles you have. If you are allowed to initiate payment, that is said in the certificate. If you're allowed just have a look on the account, then it says in the certificate. So the bank knows what to handle and how to handle this TPP or this fintech. That is the strong point of the PSD2, and that's the connection to the certificates. Here is an example. I don't want to go to every line, but the qualified website certificates is securing the transport layer. So between the server of the fintech and your bank is a secure line as a TLS connection. And the seal is securing the content. So if you have a transaction of €3, the €3 are sealed like an envelope. They are sealed, and you know how to handle that in the back systems, and you know that is from this TPP. Well, how to get it? You first go to your national competent authority, in Germany the BaFin, and you want to have a license for participating in the PSD2 region, and then you go to your trust service provider and just fill out some forms and have a certificate application, then you get it a couple of days later. So that is pretty easy. The second part is pretty easy. The first part with the National Competent Authority takes a little bit more going into the detail of the business model and security. Well, that is most thing I have to say. That is our application form. We are live, so you can buy these certificates from Bundesdruckerei D-Trust, and yeah, that's just an example of that. And to continue, John will tell you something about PRETA.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Christian. I'm very pleased to be here today. So a quick introduction of myself. My name's John Broxis. I've lived in Paris for the last 20 years. So don't worry, I'm not here bringing Brexit or anything like that, especially on a day when it's European elections and such. I'm running an initiative called Open Banking Europe that's run by our company PRETA. And we're really doing what Christian's just brought up and what we have from the introduction. We've got two very strong pieces of legislation here. We've got the Second Payment Services Directive, PSD2, and we've got the eIDAS regulation, electronic identity and signature. And both are new, both have very deep technological implications, and they're coming together. And typically, the people in the security, eIDAS, cryptographic world do not really know the people in the payments world. And the people in the payments world equally do not know the security, the trust service providers like Christian from the Bundesdruckerei there. So really trying to bring those two sides together. Before I jump into some slides, also some questions to you. I'd just like to know who I'm talking to, who we're talking to. How many of you in here, if you just put your hand up please, how many of you are from banks or financial institutions? Okay, a few of you, 10, 12. How many of you are from technology providers? Quite a lot more. How many of you are into cryptography or security features? A few of you. Okay, so I'm guessing, and okay, one more question. This is between PSD2 versus eIDAS. How many of you know what PSD2 is? Okay, very good. How many of you know what eIDAS is? Okay, well, you're very intelligent audience then, that's good. So again, a little bit on who we are. I won't make a big song and dance about it, but our parent company and the group I'm in and my previous job, we run infrastructure for the banks. About €1 trillion of payments go through our payment systems every week. Pretty much all the German payments go through our systems since the introduction of SEPA. And we're a bank-owned organisation that's today bringing together 5 different stakeholders, and we believe that all of this only works if we work together. You need to bring the competent authorities on board. You need to bring the banks, who we're calling here ASPSPs. These are the account servicing payment service providers. There are now these third parties that can come in and access data or create payments from the bank's accounts on our behalf, us as consumers. There are these qualified trusted service providers like D-Trust through Bundesdruckerei. Christian represents the people who deliver these electronic certificates, these passports as he called them, and create that security infrastructure. And then, in fact, many of you, service providers, solution providers who are trying to stitch all this together for your customers who are the primary stakeholders here. So we've got a program bringing these together. The program is funded by about 40 or so of the biggest banks and a few service providers in Europe. You'll see some familiar names in there. Deutsche Bank, HVB from Germany, but it's really pan-European. And I'm going to highlight one very sort of technical, this is as technical as it gets, one thing about the access that has to happen. So PSD2 is saying that third parties can come and initiate payments or get data from banks' accounts on behalf of you or I. This means the banks have to do an access check. They have to give access to those people who are allowed, and they have to block access to those people that are not allowed. And the regulation says that eIDAS certificates will be used for the identification of the third parties. So this is where the eIDAS meets the PSD2. There's just one line in Article 34 of the Regulatory Technical Standards of PSD2 that says we will use eIDAS certificates for the identification. It does not say how authorization happens. Now, to the regulators, it's all the same thing, but to engineers, we understand the difference between authentication and authorization. And so we're using the eIDAS certificates for identifying, and we're taking what becomes a very special number now, the global unique reference number, out of that certificate, and we're using that to query the national registers where we understand what is that third party allowed to do. And for those of you who are not close to it, this is a complete nightmare because there is no standard for the competent authority registers. There wasn't even a standard for the number until we helped build one. And so one of our pieces of work is consolidating the 31 national competent authority registers into a single directory with all its multiplicity of languages and such. We've done a lot of work with the QTSP community. Again, QTSP being the qualified trusted service providers, those who are licensed to or qualified to issue the eIDAS certificates. We're running an engagement group with them, and we're bringing that to our banking stakeholders and our TPP stakeholders so that everybody gets the same picture of this fairly new technology, or new use of a technology, an old technology really, but it's a new use, it's new rules, it's new ways of working. And in fact, we've published really a lot of material. I'm not going to go into this now. I just want you to hang on to the fact that if you want to understand more about this, there's a load of material on our website. It's all free. I don't think you even have to register to get it. You just go and have a look. But we were part of helping build the standard, along with Christian and the other QTSPs, for the TS 119495 standard of what a PSD2 eIDAS certificate looks like. There's various reports from ECB working groups, but also a mini guide in terms of how eIDAS certificates work in a PSD2 context, a frequently asked question, because we always get asked the same questions about how revocations work, how do you know a certificate's qualified, do you need hardware devices to have these certificates, why are there two types of certificate and what are they used for? All these are in these documents, and also a document which, or a list of the QTSPs that currently are issuing these certificates. One of the market problems we have is that the deadline is in September, and there's still a feeling that there aren't really any qualified trusted service providers actually issuing these certificates that will be needed in 4 or 5 months' time. It's not really true. They are. Christian's just stood up. He's one of them. He's providing them today, so you can get test certificates from him. You can get live certificates from him. It is there, so it is all happening. But there's a lot of work going on in the background to make this happen. So more information on our website. There's other work we're doing around how you sign messages. There's the work that we're doing in terms of pulling all the regulatory data into one place, into one directory. And there's also a whole load of work going on to try and harmonize or provide transparency on all the different APIs that the banks are talking about. So that's it from me. For more information, you can find our website, and it's all there. And just like to say thank you very much for welcoming us here this morning. Thank you.